These are my honest, unpaid thoughts about the upgrades to the passives that came into the quick play hack that happened July 15th to July 16th. I believe they end now by the time this video goes up or at some point today. Also, great idea, Blizzard, doing something this monumental and only keeping around for about a day and a half. Seriously, something like this should have not only been maybe an arcade game mode, but been there for over a week so they could gather a lot of valuable data. Me personally, like, I like the idea. I think it's a good starting point. There's a foundation there that remains a lot to be desired if they want to go into it, but only testing it for such a limited time, in my opinion, is a little bit of a wasted opportunity because I didn't get to test every single hero I wanted. So I'm going to talk about my own heroes, and then I asked you guys, can you tell me about heroes and experiences that you played, the passives that you picked, and then what was the result of it? Let's not waste any time and start talking about it. Now, there's three passives. In case you've missed what those are, tanks got Unyielding, Armored, and Last Stand. In Unyielding, you get to reduce debuff durations by 40%. Armored allows you to convert 100 HP into armor. Last Stand gives you a 50% cooldown reduction when you're below 50% HP. Now, over on the support side of things, you get three different support passive upgrades or pickable extra passes, whatever you want to call it. Resourceful, Swift Save, and then Close Call. Close Call allows you to gain a 20% speed boost when you drop below 50% HP. Swift Save allows you to increase healing by 50% for targets below 35% HP. Resourceful is the final new passive, and that allows you to reduce cooldowns permanently by 20%. That's insane. Then moving over to the DPS pickable passives, you got Slayer, Trigger Happy, and Frenzy. Slayer allows you to see a critical HP enemies through walls. This is kind of useless in my opinion, because while it is nice for maybe like our every like niche situation every now and then, you're legitimately never ever using this, because if an enemy is usually crit HP and they're hiding behind a wall, the chances are more often than not they are with their team. Also, if I'm not mistaken, in the previous patch, they added this thing where you can permanently see the HP bar of an enemy that has low health. So what was the point? Like, that was a great quality of life change. Seriously, it helps a lot with information feedback in the game. But what was the point of adding Slayer if when it pretty much serves the same purpose as this one? At least with the quality of life change, you can actually take advantage of the kill. If somebody's behind a wall, more often than not, they're probably hiding or they are with one of their teammates, and makes this almost useless. Like, it probably pops up every now and then for Tracer and Sombra, but I really never ever found myself using this in other situations. Maybe every now and then there was like a really greedy DPS or support, I could blow their heads off with Hanzo, Widow, or even Ashe. But at other points, I never had this thing come up. I want to hear your guys' experience with the DPS passive, because I'm about to rant about this in just a moment. Then we have Trigger Happy, the increasing ammo capacity by 20%. Now, usually this would be really nice if we were still under the 200 HP format. The problem is, in the new HP format, with the way cooldowns are working, with the way armor is working, this feels useless. This unironically feels near useless. Okay, it's really good for characters like Tracer, Sombra. You know, it's nice that Fire gets an extra rocket to shoot. It's useless on Hanzo. By the way, all three DPS passives are pretty much useless on Hanzo. That's the problem I have with the DPS passives. Now, going on further, then you have Frenzy, which eliminations grant a brief 30% speed boost. Now, this is what the OG passive was, where if you got a kill, you get a 30% speed boost. Now, this was nice. I definitely liked this one. The way I was playing it, like, let's say I was playing Genji, what I was doing was I was using Trigger Happy to give myself a little bit more ammo to spam, build my blade, and then what would happen is that when I got my blade, I would actually either go back to spawn in case we were regrouping, or I would die, you know, with the team, and then go to spawn and then swap it to Frenzy so that my blade could be even faster. And boy, was it faster. It didn't really help the situation in terms of securing kills because the numbers are pathetic, but it certainly helped me move around and reach some targets, which was a much welcome change that I felt like. So now that we've talked about all the passes, which ones did I like, which ones did I dislike? To start off, there's a mini rant that I want to get out of the way. Why is it that tank and supports genuinely get these passives that allow them one way or the other to increase their numbers, but DPS basically get like, it's like you're serving full 5-star hotel menu royalty cakes to tank, to support, and then DPS just get like this little loaf of bread. And this loaf of bread, it doesn't even have any like, you know, butter on it. It's just a little bit of fungus, and they're like, yeah, you know, there's a bit of fungus on it, but like, at least it's bread, right? And you're like, yeah, at least it's bread. It's better than nothing, you know? And that's the problem I have with this DPS passive. It's like the DPS passive, again, Slayer, at least this is just my opinion, I could be wrong, again, didn't get enough time to play with it. I was mostly enjoying tank and support because I felt like, wow, I can actually control so many situations. We'll talk about them in just a moment with some gameplay footage that I'll show you in a moment as well. And like I said, the DPS passive for me was just sad. Like, I barely felt like they were making any gameplay changes to what I wanted. It really never ever felt like, oh, this is a game changer, like I have a little bit more ammo, or, because again, like there's a little bit more HP going around, so it just doesn't make a difference. Or, you know, like supports can have their cooldown reduced by 20% permanently, and, you know, it's okay, you have a little bit more ammo, you know, you can do your pathetic damage a little bit more, unless you're playing Pharah, then that ammo capacity increase actually helps quite a bit, but, you know, Pharah's gonna get gutted very soon. Anyway, regardless, my little rant aside, the tank and support passives were very good. DPS passive was really negligible. Like, if I had to rate tank and support passives, I give them near 10 out of 10 in terms of allowing you to shift up playstyles. For example, you know, when I was playing the tank and I was playing Reinhardt, you know, there was like situations where, depending on what the enemy was playing, there was points where I was like, wait, no, I want unyielding because I want debuffs to be reduced. And maybe I don't want more armor because, you know, Ryan is very tanky in a lot of different ways. And then there was points where I was like, okay, no, now I want the armor. And then, you know, I was playing Winston and I was like, okay, on Winston, you know, that's where I want last stand. Because, like, you know, when Winston gets like targeted and focused down, having the cooldowns come up faster can definitely help you escape. So I really liked last stand on Winston. D.Va was hilariously broken with all three of them, by the way. It was like the unkillable tank became even more unkillable, which I wasn't a fan of. Seriously, nerf D.Va. Video coming on her really soon. And then, you know, from the DPS passive, so forget the DPS passive, is irrelevant. The support passive side of things, I didn't really get to test every support. I played like Ana, Iliari, Mercy, Lucio, and Zen. And again, depending on the situation, I could mess around with different settings that I liked. But particularly, I really liked how Swift's save completely took away Iliari's one weakness, which was her poor healing if her pylon goes down or if a target needs to be healed up because they're low. Because Swift's save, which allows your healing to be increased by 50% for targets below 35% HP, thumbs up. This shit is insane, bro. Like, the way you were able to keep a tank alive with this, especially since they have like less DPS passive on them as well, 10% healing reduction only, this was crazy. Even you Swift save with Ana, and my goodness, man, like, it just felt like my tank would never die, their tank would never die. Doesn't matter what role I was playing, like, I felt like a lot of supports were opting for Swift save. Now, when I played characters like Mercy, and sometimes Zenyatta, I was actually opting for the cooldown reduction because I wanted to throw out discords faster. I wanted to, you know, super jump and Guardian Angel around more. So there was definitely ways that you could experiment. Maybe you're like, okay, maybe my team needs a bit more healing, so you use the sort of save on Mercy instead of, you know, other things. So I liked it. I really liked it on tank and supports. Look, it doesn't solve the balancing and format issues and the other gameplay loop issues that exist, but it certainly gave you a little bit more control over your gameplay style, which is desperately what Overwatch needs right now. But where I felt hurt the most was when I played tank, I had fun. Even if I was losing, if I was winning, I felt like, okay, I can do something to, like, by staying on my character and adjusting to the situation through a passive. And when I was playing support, I felt the same thing too, that I can kind of stay on my support, but adjust my passive to, you know, give the team what they want or adjust to the enemy team and what they're playing. But it was the DPS passive where I genuinely felt like, yeah, this shit's useless, bro. Like, I didn't ever feel like I needed the ammo capacity increase. I never felt like I cared about the enemy HP appearing, so, you know, like they're like, basically you get wall hacks, but, you know, it's like a mini infra site. I felt like I didn't really need that because most of the time, you know, people were playing disciplined and behind cover and with their support. So I was just kind of like, I don't really see where any of this is supposed to help DPS. Like, it genuinely felt like it was like an indirect gigabuff, 2 tanks and supports, and it just gave DPS the finger, which is hilarious because I feel like Blizzard is scared that if they gave DPS number increases, they would, you know, quote unquote, increase the burst damage in the game. But in this same situation, they gave supports actual healing increase, but never even bothered to look at the way damage is interacting. Also, one side mini rant as well. Whenever the burst damage problem gets brought up in this game, I unironically believe that DPS is not the role that causes that massive burst damage that we all keep talking about towards tanks. It's unironically tanks and supports that are now doing more damage, at least some of them, that do hilarious amount of burst damage that Blizzard refuses to address. Like, do we really need to talk about Mauga and Roadhog or Baptiste and Zenyatta and what they can enable? Like, I never understand why they never look at those characters and then they look at Soldier and Genji. They're like, yeah, Soldier will do 17.5 damage to the new new armor, Genji will do also, like, I forgot, like Genji's new armor damage is near the same as Soldier's damage, where they barely hit the target that has the armor on them. It's just, it feels so disconnected from the problem, where it's like, when are we going to learn that it's not DPS, outside of like a few who definitely need to be changed and reworked? I agree. Outside of very few that I've talked about openly on who they are, outside of those few, it isn't damage that causes the burst damage problem. It's legitimately tanks and supports. But they don't want to openly admit that. And then in the same, this, you know, tank passive patch and all this shit, they should, what is the tank passives are? It's basically, you get to do high burst damage. You get to survive for as long as you want. You can also just ignore debuffs at this point. And then your cooldowns can get reduced so you can survive more. Great, that's amazing. This is insane changes on top of the passive they have. Then supports have their insane passive, and then, oh, you can just permanently reduce your cooldowns by 20%. But that's amazing, you know? Why wouldn't I want to reduce my cooldowns by 20%? Or I can increase my healing numbers by 50%. 50% for a target that drops a little bit low. That's crazy. But you know what damage gets? Nothing. They get an ammo increase, so you can do more of the pathetic damage to the new armor in the game that renders you useless and underwhelming to play. Okay, I'm done with the rant. Holy crap, I really need to get that off my chest, because seriously, it genuinely, like, I don't understand the hate that the balance team has for the damage roll. It genuinely really feels like there is some weird, like, oh god, it's the damage roll that causes all these problems, and not these weirdly designed tanks or weirdly designed supports that we refuse to address the design issues or the balance issues with, you know? But anyways, so my opinion on the passives is I like them. I don't think 3 is how many we should have. Let's assume we do go down this route, because I do personally think that Blizz is going to ignore 6v6. They're going to drop that blog post. It's going to be a whole lot of nothing. Just their opinions and what their data said, as per usual. Or they try to, you know, gaslight us by saying something like, oh, but, you know, we can actually go back to 6v6 because we have these technical issues and yada, 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 you know, visual cluster. You know, they will make up some excuse to not go back. So if we're going to stay in 5v5, I like the idea of increasing the you know, the amount of passes that we can have in some way to help our characters. But if we go down this route, there needs to be a serious look at what we're going to give damage heroes. Like, and I feel like, you know, we might have to do some changes to kind of balance it out as well. Like, obviously, you don't just put this stuff in and not do a big game balancing patch. I'm open-minded to these changes, but I look at the balance team, I'm like, look, I'm always open-minded to what you guys want to do to shake up the game. But in order to truly shake up the game, you need to ask yourselves, what is the underlying problem with the game first? If you don't address that first, these changes and everything that you're doing will never ever counteract that initial startup problem that exists to begin with. It just, like, then this could actually add on to that problem that already exists. I hope you guys understand what I'm talking about here, because otherwise I could draw this video out for another 1 hour and talk deeply about the problems with hero design and balance in this game. Because seriously, the fact that they're constantly ignoring some of the problematic hero designs, I'm really worried about what Space Ranger might enable, especially with how they've been hyping her up. Don't get me wrong, excited for the hero, can't wait to try her out, can't wait to play her. I do have my fears though, and I think it's always okay to be cautiously optimistic about Overwatch, because that's what I feel about it right now. Cautiously optimistic. So, passives, tank passive, 10 out of 10, support passives, 10 out of 10, DPS passives, 2 out of 10, horrible, negligible, extremely useless, none of them felt useful. It felt good on characters that were already good and didn't even need them. So Tracer, you know, characters like that. It didn't really help characters that are struggling in the game, like characters like Hanzo, maybe even like, you know, Junkrat a little bit here and there. Some of it exploited like more problems in the game that already exist. Like, for example, the increasing the ammo capacity for Fire and Junkrat just involves more mindless spam and low elo. So it doesn't necessarily solve the problems that low elo players face, and just increases them by another number. So it's just some food for thought that I'm trying to discuss from like all different perspectives. Overall, this passive thingy that they tested, from the limited time that I got to test it, you know, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I would have liked more time with it. I would have liked to maybe have like a in-community like testing tournament where we would try to play a little bit competitively and see like what reigns on top, how do people adjust, kind of interview everybody that was involved and ask them how they felt from a tank dedicated perspective, DPS dedicated perspective, support dedicated perspective. Also, Blizzard, would be really nice if we could actually see what passives the other players are picking, so we could understand that, oh, okay, they're doing this thing, maybe I can adjust like this. It just feels like a unnecessary advantage when you don't know. Like, for example, if a support has reduced cooldowns by 20%, you know, there's ways to go about giving this information. Anyways, if we stay in 5v5, this game is 100% going down the Paladin's route, and you know what? At this point, this is a casuals game. If we're going to take it down the casuals route to make it as wacky and crazy as possible, screw it, do it, go down, because I personally don't think the dev team cares about making this game a competitive game anymore. They do their level best to hype it up as this like really competitive shooter. And guys, it's not. Like, look at all the things they've been doing lately. At this point, it's just us who are remaining delusional that they're ever going to change their philosophy. Look, I could be wrong. I could be wrong, and maybe the next patch changes everything. But I just don't see it happening. Like, their track record has proven they don't want to go to 6v6. They don't want to adjust the hero like design problems. All they really care about is, okay, can we sell the skins? And can we make the game more wacky and always change it up? And, you know, sometimes making things wacky and making some things like a little bit silly is fine. But there are times where you begin to push it. And I feel like at the moment, I feel like they're going to start pushing it because they're unsure of how to approach the hero design and some of the balance issues. Because they have this weird philosophy where they want to make everything competitively viable. And that's just not how it works in a game, especially like Overwatch. If you have problematic designs, you have to throw them away. Anyways, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. If you have any thoughts and experiences that you want to share, I will be reading the comments. Leave them down below. If you want to support the channel for free, all you have to do is like and subscribe. It means the world. If you want to support the channel financially, all you have to do is check out my Patreon or, you know, YouTube memberships and things like that. I think that stuff is online now. I think. I'm fairly certain it is. So if you want to check that out, check it out. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.